Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. It's so good to be hanging out with you for the next 40, 50 minutes or so. I hope you are currently having a great weekend. If you're in Australia like I am, you've already had your weekend. We're well into Monday the 6th of February. And so far looking like a pretty good week. We have battled through here in Brisbane, Australia, which is where I am. At the end of last week, we had really, really hot weather, hot, humid, very uncomfortable. Let me know what the weather is like where you're from, and in doing so, let us know where you're from. We have people join us every week here on the live chat, in the live show, from across the globe. And it's always good to sort of get to know you all and meet you and interact with you and all of those things. So it'll be good to know that you're well and ready for a great show. Today we're doing a Q&A, which is where you ask the questions, and to the best of my ability, I do my best to answer them. For the most part, I'm generally able to do so. Of course, for you to ask a question, you do need to subscribe to the channel. Now, the reason for that is it just helps us to moderate, those people that we call trolls, and so you do have to subscribe, and then it'll take about 5 minutes. If you're a new subscriber, it'll take about 5 minutes for you to be able to then make that comment. But we really want your questions, and so you can do that. Of course, in the Q&A, there is kind of a hierarchy, if you will, of questions, and that is we take all the questions chronologically, so the first question gets asked is the first question that gets answered, unless you place a super chat with your question, in which way you jump the queue. And all super chats are really thankfully received. All of those super chats get fed back into running the show and running the Voice Essentials ecosystem, which seems to be, always growing. And we'll talk a little bit more about a part of that ecosystem, the Facebook group, in a moment. But before we do, I want to tell you about our special live guests coming up on the show. And if you've never really watched the show, well, firstly, welcome. Secondly, we've been doing this live show. When I say we, me and Linda and you, we've been doing this show now together for 6-7 years, a little while. And what we try to do is every couple of weeks, we try to have a special live guest. Now, these live guests are not just anybody randomly. These special live guests, we are so privileged here at Voice Essentials to have some of the best vocal pedagogues and associated professionals come onto the show and grace us with their time, their expertise, and they just generously give of that when they come on. And the 3 guests that I have got lined up for you this quarter, before Easter, are guests that we've had on the show before. Now, last week, I told you about 2 of them, and this week I can reveal the 3rd one. I couldn't tell you who it was because we hadn't locked it in, but we have now locked it in. I'm going to hold you in suspense for just a moment, because each of these guests, each of the guests that we've got coming onto the show, not only have they all been on the show previously, but they all kind of, really, exciting, kind of curious way interlinked. They all are connected. I'll show you why. So the first guest that we're going to be having is co-author of this book here called The Vocal Athlete. And we've been privileged enough to have both the authors on the show before, but the one we're having on the show very soon is Wendy Leborgne. And Wendy is just fabulous. It's been I think pre-COVID since we had Wendy on the show before. But she, in her book, in this book here, The Vocal Athlete, has a whole chapter written by, let me get up there, Matthew Edwards. Matthew is the second special guest that we're going to be having on the show before Easter. And he wrote this book here called So You Want to Sing Rock and Roll, A Guide for Professionals by Matthew Edwards. And he's fantastic. I don't need to tell you that if you've seen his work. But he writes about our third guest when he writes, finally, singers need to know that much of what is presented on YouTube about this type of singing. He's talking about distorted vocals, think metal, screamo, those sorts of things. This type of singing is not only misinformed, but also possibly dangerous. I'm going to start that sentence again because that didn't sound right. Finally, singers need to know that much of what is presented on YouTube about this type of singing is not only misinformed, but also possibly dangerous. That is true. Most of the videos are self-taught singers, and what worked for them may or may not work for you. Remember, their anatomy is different than yours. Here's the name of our third special guest. Melissa Cross is the authority on this type of singing, and I trust her work. This is Matthew saying this. She works alongside medical professionals, not only in the rehabilitation of clients who come to her with existing vocal damage, but also clients looking to improve their understanding of how the vocal mechanism works in extreme settings. And so that's how Melissa is related to the other two. And so there's a funny little run of connections there. The three special guests we've got before Easter: Dr. Wendy Leborgne, Dr. Matthew Edwards, and Melissa Cross from Zen of Scream. So it's going to be just really high quality special guests. For you to be reminded of when those special guests are going live, you've got to subscribe to the channel, hit the white bell icon so that you get notified via email from YouTube to let you know that these special guests are coming on. Our first special guest, all things working out, will not be next week, but the week after. Still locking in exactly which of those three will be in 2 weeks' time. We will do another Q&A next week, just the same as we're going to do today. But just wanted to give you a heads up just to the level of quality of people that we're going to be having on the show. And we'll be talking all things contemporary vocals and all of that sort of jazz. It's going to be fantastic, and all that kind of jazz. Jazz is a contemporary vocal art form. Now, in regards to Facebook, the ecosystem of Voice Essentials, we have a Facebook community group called the Voice Essentials Community Facebook Group. Gee, it's a mouthful. And I want to just remind you that Kathy, one of our wonderful moderators and probably one of the most active people within the group, and sort of really drives that group. She is running, well, we as a community are running, but Kathy's running with this. She's running a breath management challenge, a 28-day challenge during March. Now, the 28-day challenge is actually mine, and there's a video attached to that. Some of you may have seen the video already. There's a worksheet in that video. Anywho, Kathy is going to be working through that through March. It's going to be awesome. And of course, it's free to participate. All you got to do, make sure you log onto Facebook, search Voice Essentials Community. It'll come up. You can join. You do have to, it's a private group. We do that again. We do everything here at Voice Essentials to protect the community. And within the Facebook space, we do that by keeping the group private, but that's not to say that it's exclusive by any means. It just means that you do have to, acknowledge, do some three questions, one of them being that you are subscribing to the group rules, and then you can join. And it's that simple. And then you can join in the breath management challenge during March, which is just fantastic. It's awesome. Okay, we have got some questions coming in. and I'm looking forward to answering them. Make sure that if you do have a question, now's the time to sort of jump in and type that question into the live chat, because we very rarely get through all of the questions. And so if you do want your question answered, now's the time. And can I also just make, I went to make another, no, I've lost it. I've lost what I was going to say. Not a problem. We'll come back to it in a moment, right after this. Okay. Now, that's a comment from 55 Porter earlier on. Is anyone else here? 55 Porter, you jumped into the chat really early, like 25 minutes early, I think it was. So people weren't here yet. I'm going to come over to Lisa's question, and Lisa is asking the question, what is breath support like when you're trying to sound breathy? That is a really great question. Breath support, in one sense, breath support doesn't change. Whether you're doing breathy sound, whether you're doing a loud sound. I can already hear people saying, what? Hear me out. In one sense, the way we manage breath, and again, here at Voice Essentials, we tend not to use the term breath support, in part because it kind of can lead us down the road of thinking that it's got this rigid pressure and push to it. And that's certainly not what we want to set up with our breath management. What we want to do is be able to manage the air in such a way that it is fed, that the pressure remains relatively even directly below the vocal folds, but that it's actually the laryngeal configuration that determines how the air is then fed through the larynx and the aesthetic thereof, aesthetic being breathy phonation. So, for example, with breathy phonation, it's going to be a lighter adduction of the vocal folds, often a thinner edge to the vocal folds. There may even be some separation at the rear of the vocal folds, which is allowing some leakage. This is why we always want this to be a choice for voice, not a habit, because a vocal chink at the rear of the vocal folds is not a sustainable nor a healthy or efficient mode of voicing, but certainly to facilitate the aesthetic value of breathiness, it can have its place. And so then that sense of maintained pressure is fed in a really consistent flow, and it's more about, as I say, the configuration of the vocal folds, and some in one sense some supraglottics, some of the setup of that which is immediately above the vocal folds that can determine some breathiness. So, for example, with a breathy tone, often, not always, but often we're not going to have a lot of twang behind that. So the epiglottis is going to sit up and be quite that much more broader than if we were to hear it in twang, which would have it more focused. That's not to say that you can't have a focused tone and breathiness at the same time. They are different things. It's just that what we would more often hear with breathiness. So I hope that helps answer your question, Lisa, and it's good to see you in the chat again. Oh, that is what I was going to say. Not everyone, in fact, most people don't watch this show or listen to this show as more of a podcast live. Most of you are listening to this show in replay. And I just want to give a shout out to all of you who watch and listen to the show after the fact. That's why I make the show available after the fact, because I know so many of you do enjoy hearing the answers and listening to our special guests. But of course, if you have a question, don't hesitate to leave that question in the comments. We're not participating live, but I spent an hour this morning answering comments on my YouTube channel, and some of those have been left on the live show. And so jump in, ask your questions. If you have a question, ask them in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer those for you, because I do love the fact that so many of you enjoy the show and have enjoyed the show for many years. Our wonderful intrepid, do I call you intrepid, Linda? I don't know. Linda's got a question from myself. She writes that because Linda is the person that's taking all of our questions in the live chat and putting them into a Word document. And here she is. She got a question in for herself. Dr. Dan, what was the most challenging song you have ever performed, and for what reason, technical or otherwise? Ooh. There's been a few over the years, Linda. I remember there was a song, there's a John Farnham song called Please Don't Ask Me. Not Please Don't Ask Me. Yeah, Please Don't Ask Me. Please don't ask me, what am I thinking? It's about you. And it's it has a challenge for the tenor. John Farnham is for those of you who don't know, you got to look him up. Look him up on YouTube. If you don't know who John Farnham is, he is a famous Australian sort of rock pop singer of the 80s and 90s. Amazing. And here, this song, Please Don't Ask Me, is a real challenge for the tenor voice because the tessitura, the mean average of the notes, sits very high and is consistently high. And so to maintain that balance of breath pressure that we were talking about for Lisa just before, and to maintain what is a relatively energized, verging on pressed voicing without it becoming too intense, that's a real challenge. I remember there was another song I was preparing for a wedding, and it had a lot of falsetto flips, and as a tenor, I found that quite challenging to access a really consistent full falsetto. These were all back in my uni days that I was using these songs. And then a third one that I can think of is also a Farnham piece. Well, it wasn't a Farnham piece. It's actually an Andrew Lloyd Webber piece from JC's Superstar, Gethsemane. And it was actually Farnham's rendition, cover version that I did of that song. And that's a big sing. And then there's another song, Pity the Child from Chess, another rock opera tune, which is a fabulous song to sing. It's so fun. But it has a top D. And to nail it full voice, when I was working on it in my younger years, that top D, we're talking a D5 in full voice. This is not falsetto. D5 full voice on an oo vowel was so hard, like hit and miss. It was always flip a coin. Is Daniel going to hit the D5? So there's some of the challenges that I've faced over the years, Linda. But it's those sorts of challenges that I think keeps us coming back for more. I don't know whether that means that we're, suckers for punishment, but it certainly is exciting to sort of line the voice up to try and position and do the run up just right so that top D sits. And yeah, I can't with all truthfulness say that I got it to a point where I could reliably every single time nail the D. I was always well within the vicinity, but was I ever 100% happy with that D? No, I can't say that I was. But good fun nonetheless. Oh, we've got a question here from, let me see if I can, here we go. This is from Pallavi, which, good to see you in the live chat, Pallavi. How to sing smoothly. Well, I'm glad you asked, Pallavi, because last week's pre-record video is about singing smoothly. It's some exercises that are specifically designed to teach you how to sing with a smooth, silky voice. I want to encourage you to jump over to the channel page and look at just hit the video tab, and it'll be one of the first videos in the lineup because it's brand new. For those of you who are new to Voice Essentials, I do pre-record. I do 3 videos a week. Starts with this live show every Monday at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Then on a Wednesday, well, it's actually, yes, it is midnight Wednesday, or yeah, it is midnight Wednesday, which is sort of straight after Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. These are all in Aussie times. On Wednesday, I have a pre-record video, generally a larger video where we sort of deep dive into a subject. Usually there's somewhere between 5 to 8 minute videos. And then on a Friday, I release generally a shorts, here on YouTube and on Instagram for that matter. And I share those across to Facebook. And so this is one of the reasons why we need to subscribe to the channel, because you would be missing out on all of that if you weren't subscribed. So 3 videos a week. And so that was last week's video, Pallavi. And so I hope you go and check it out, because I go into a lot of depth with some really practical exercises. In fact, it's one of the best performing videos I've had in recent times. I've received a lot of really positive and encouraging feedback from people who have got a lot of value out of that video. So Pallavi, I want to encourage you to jump over and have a look for yourself. Just jumping up here to the next question, if I can find it. Here we go. JK Virus, which according to your question's interesting. After singing, I easily get sick. Any tips? That's interesting, JK Virus. That shouldn't be the case. The reasons for you easily getting sick after... Now I'm just going to sort of educated guesstimates here, because this is not a normal question. Educated guess is that it may be that when you are singing, that you are placing the voice under way too much load, which is causing an abrasive activity, which is therefore, dare I say, damaging, being abrasive to the mucosal layer that coats our vocal tract, to the point where any virus or bacteria that you are inhaling as a part of just everyday living, breathing, but also the heightened flow that we have during singing, that you are more susceptible to infection due to that. That is a guess, purely guess. The other thing it could be, and this is kind of along the same pattern, is if you suffer from reflux, then you may be that inflammatory response, that burning sensation that we get from LPR, laryngeal pharyngeal reflux, again may be making you more susceptible, more vulnerable to infection. It could be, I'm really, I'm out on a limb here. It could be that you have sinus issues, and so by singing a lot, you are causing some of that infected mucus to drain post-nasal drip down the back of your throat, causing a high level of infection. I would encourage you to go and see your general practitioner, your family doctor, and discuss this with them. It may well be that you can explore that with them. I'm not a medical doctor, and the thoughts that I just had were just me musing on the interesting curiosity that is you getting sick after you sing. So hopefully those ideas might lead you to discover what is actually going on there for you, JK, and I hope that's helpful. Let's come down to here. FG Taker. What does smoking do to my voice? FG, you're not going to be surprised to hear this, I don't think, but the answer is nothing good. Like, nothing good at all. And let's talk, first of all, let's talk tobacco, and then I'm going to talk vaping, because vaping is the new craze. Smoking cigarettes, tobacco, the nicotine within tobacco, firstly, highly addictive, and secondly, it can kill you. Like, I'm not telling you anything you already know. I have, not recently, but in the past, I have read research to suggest that when we sing and smoke, we heighten the opportunity for carcinogenic effect upon the vocal tract, and including the vocal folds. Smoking and singing do not mix. Smoking and living don't mix. Smoking and singing are really, really bad for you. So that's tobacco. Let's just briefly talk vaping. And I know that in recent years, because vaping's kind of only just become a thing, right? Let's say in the last 5 years. I know it existed before then, but jumping into pop culture, certainly here in Australia, it's become a big thing in the last 5 years, probably a bit longer than that. But anyway, the problem is that firstly, a lot of the research is showing that even those vaping products that say explicitly on their advertising material does not contain nicotine, have been found to include nicotine. So there's no guarantee that you aren't being groomed to be addicted to nicotine with the vaping. That aside. Secondly, the concoction, the complexity of the dangerous substances that are found in these vaping mechanisms is incredibly dangerous. Now, let me explain why. Before the show started today, I was using this fellow here. This is called a vocal mist. And it produces, can you see that? It produces like a vapor. This is exactly the same technology that is used in a vape. What it does is it atomizes, in my case, the saline, the 0.9% medicinal grade saline solution that I then breathe in to coat and replenish the superficial lubrication, the hydration of my vocal folds. This is so effective in penetrating the mucosal layer, the outer layer, the epithelium of the vocal folds, as to be a wonderful product. Like, it's so beneficial. In fact, there is a an affiliate link in the description section of this video where you can go and check this out. Every serious singer will get so much value out of this. Like, it's brilliant. And so you just suck on it. In some ways, just like a vape, right? Now, notice that you don't, like a vape, you don't then get the puff of white smoke afterwards. The reason for this being as effective as it is the very same reason you should not be vaping the junk that comes in the vaping fluids. Because the vaping fluids, including, carbattery acid, and there's a whole list of really nasty stuff that comes in these vaping fluids, that is being atomized, and in the same way, the same efficient way that my vocal mist is delivering saline solution into the surface of my vocal folds, the very same thing is happening with the vape and embedding into the mucosa of the vocal tract, into the vocal folds, deep into the lungs. So dangerous. And I would be encouraging, and I advise all of my private students, steer clear. Steer clear. Now, I got one more for you, FG. Pot. Let's talk about marijuana. And I know in many US states now, the use of recreational cannabis has been legalized. And so this is not, and in fact, certainly in many countries, tobacco is legal. Certainly here in Australia it is. Vaping, my government, the Australian government, is playing catch up on the vaping. But certainly here in Australia, cannabis is not legal. But in many US states, the use of cannabis is legal. But for singers, what is permissible is not really that profitable for the voice. And so the reason for that is, unlike tobacco smoke, which burns at a certain Celsius degree, pot burns very, very hot, significantly hotter than tobacco. And so while cannabis may not kill you like nicotine will, cannabis will sear the edge, literally just like getting a piece of red meat and putting it onto a hot barbecue plate. It'll sear the edge of the vocal folds, and it will lead to wear and tear of your vocal folds like nobody's business. If you do use cannabis recreationally, hopefully you're doing that legally wherever you are. But if you do use cannabis, please take note of the impact that it is having on your voice. Now, I know when you listen to me saying all these things, you think, oh man, he's a bit of a killjoy, there's no fun left in the world. This is all for your vocal betterment. I do not have any soapbox to stand on. I've got no big bad stick other than wanting the very best for you vocally. And I want you to, start to take note of these personal disciplines / recreations that we engage in and how they impact your singing. Your voice, we don't take the voice out, put it in a case and carry it away to pack it onto a shelf. When our voice goes everywhere with us, it does everything with us, and it is influenced and impacted by everything about us, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. All of these areas have an impact on the health of our voice. And I know, if you're watching the show, I know how passionate you are about, the use and development of your singing voice. Please don't put extra hurdles in front of yourself that you have to jump over every time you come to use your voice. Tobacco, vaping, and pot are all pretty significant hurdles. With tobacco probably being the most significant because you can't sing if you're dead. So I know, and I do say that with a level of grace, because many of these are addictions that are hard to kick, and verge on impossible to kick. But that doesn't mean it's not worth trying to move away from them. That's my encouragement to you. FG, I hope that's helpful as you're thinking about the effect of smoking on your voice. Let's come to Kevin. Kevin, where are you? Here we go. Any tips? Kevin's asking, any tips for developing more stamina in our breathing muscles to avoid fatigue? Well, Kevin, as I said at the start of this show, have we got a month lined up for you in the Voice Essentials Community Facebook group? The 28-day challenge during March, being run by Kathy Snyder. My tip for you for developing more stamina in your breathing is do the 28-day challenge, because it is going to require more of you around the way you manage your air. And that video that Kathy's going to be sharing as a part of running that 28-day challenge actually takes you through kind of a step-by-step process of how to increase your stamina, but safely, carefully, in a considered manner. And so when you do that, you're going to strengthen the musculature that we want to be accessing with our breath management, and I think you'll find that helpful, Kevin. So make sure you jump over to the Facebook group if you have not already. Oh, Pallavi's got another question. Pallavi, you're getting in with a whole range of questions here. Oh, I just saw Karen from Singwise in the chat. Hey, Karen, I hope you're well. Whenever I sing the songs, I try to sing in the singer's voice. So how do I sing in my real voice? So Pallavi's mentioning there the tendency for so many singers, and just a heads up, this will be the last question. I just had to look at the time. Wowzers. Time flies. Pallavi's making mention here of a tendency that I see in a lot of beginner singers, where they are concerned that they're constantly singing basically in an imitation or a likeness of said artists, and they don't feel like they've got any ownership on their own sound. Pallavi, this is really normal, and this is also why spending time doing some coursework like my Voice Essentials online courses is so beneficial, because the antidote, if you will, to that scenario is spending more time with your own voice, developing your own sound. And workshopping technique is a big part of that. And I want to encourage you to spend the time away from songs. To start with, it's all about backing away from songs, because it's the song that drags you into wanting to sound and sing like the cover artist that you first heard the song sung by. And it takes a mature artist to not be sort of pulled in by that tractor beam, but to be able to step away and hear the song as an independent entity, and bring your own voice, your own sound to that. And so one way we access the development of our own sound is through technical work, because we strip away all of the song, and we're just left with scales, we're just left with vowels, and as a result it isolates the voice and causes us to really workshop that sound that is our own, and become familiar with that. And this is another reason why here for example, in my studio, whether it be here in the studio or with students online, we do all of the exercises acoustically. We're not doing them on mic, because what we're doing is forming our own vocal identity, and in forming that identity, we're refining that vocal signature that belongs to us. And so when we are looking to stop sounding like someone else, we've actually got to start sounding like ourselves, and that requires, you know, doing that isolation work with just me, my voice, and a few notes, and becoming really familiar with that. Well, there we go. Another fantastic show. Well, certainly I enjoyed myself. I hope you've enjoyed the answers. Leave your comments below if you've been watching the show as a replay. We're going to be doing the live Q&A again next week. And so make sure you bring your questions ready so that you can jump in and have your questions answered. I love the interaction, you know, I just love our community. There is, I kid you not, there is something special about this community. Yeah, we're not the biggest in the world by a long shot. We are not the biggest. We're not teeny tiny, but you know, we're a size that is healthy. We encourage each other. We're respectful and civil, and it's a group I personally love being a part of, and thank you for all that you do as a part of the community. Have a great week, everyone. I do look forward to seeing you next time we're together, and we'll catch up again soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.